Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our heart be acceptable in your sight. O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Well, put a pin in the scripture reading. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. But I want to start by saying we are at the end of our 5th week of talking about transitions, making sense of life's difficult and painful changes. I don't know about for you, but for me as the pastor, anytime we preach a series or we really dig into the scripture and we study it, it has as much effect on us and sometimes more than it does on you. Hopefully it's had some effect on you. But many of you have said it's been helpful and insightful, and it's helped you identify that, maybe I was in a place of transition in this particular issue and didn't know it. I need to give myself a little bit more time. Or I've been there and done that. I'm good. I'm on a different path now. I know for me, as I read this book by the same title many years ago in seminary, I was really trying to make a decision about where did God want to use me in the church. I wanted to be a Christian educator. When I went to seminary after not doing the law school thing, I wanted to be a Christian educator. And I had a preaching professor pull me aside and say, absolutely not. You need to head this other direction. I wasn't sure. But I'm sure now than I've ever been. But it was a transition, a great transition, a completely different mindset that I had to put on. The most important sermons, I think, are always those that teach about Scripture, which is our book. It is our book, and it's a way of understanding the stories that have been handed down to us. But also those that take that book and make some life application, that bring in some things that help inform and enlighten what we've read and make sense to us in the long run. Something you could use when you leave the church on Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday. So we've been talking about the 3 stages of transition. So let's see how we listen. The first is what? The first stage is ending. With every ending, there's a new beginning, but before anything new can begin, something has to end. The second stage is the neutral zone. The neutral zone, we usually remember that where it's that place of uncertainty and unrest, disorientation. You're not sure if you're coming or you're going, but it's a necessary place to be. And then that third stage, which we're talking about today, is the new beginnings. Walking into a new way of being. If you've done any work on transitions and you've looked at the Bridges book, he's also written another one called Managing Transitions, and it's specifically written for those in the workforce who want to know the human side of change in the workforce. Really, really good material. Well, when we think about endings, I thought about when I was a little girl, and I used to watch those Warner Brother cartoons. Did any of you ever watch those? And I always knew when the play was over, when the animation was over, because I had a visual. I also had that's all, folks. Remember the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes? That's all, folks. The end, that's it. Whether it's a marriage or a divorce or a remarriage, or whether it's a first or second baby, or whether it's a new grandbaby, whether it's a family move or a financial setback, whether it's beginning our menses as a young woman or entering menopause as some of us are now, still trying to enter it and figure it out, or whether it's the news of remission or declaration that you have a cure for your cancer, whether it's recovering from your addiction or facing aging, however well or not well we do that, whether it's facing sudden death or an expected death, whether it's winning the lottery or traveling the world, all of those circumstances put us in a place where something ends and something new begins. And we have to figure out a way of integrating that new thing into our lives. For example, can you imagine how Karen Locke feels now that she's come out of her cancer treatment and she's been declared cancer-free? Can you imagine how that feels? Can you imagine what it's like for someone to travel the world and to come back and they're not the same person they were when they left? There's a new way of understanding themselves and life and the world and what it means to be neighbor. All of those things beg something new of us. And regardless We all will wittingly or unwittingly go through a time where we try to make sense of, integrate that change into our life. Some of us do it. We walk into that place with fear and trepidation. We walk in with our fists raised to God. We walk in disoriented, disenchanted perhaps. But some of us walk into that place with great welcome. Thank God, a place of rest and rest. Some of us capitalize on that and we go away for retreat. We find a time to get away, to kind of process what it is that we're going through. Out of that, we come with a sense of hope and promise and possibility for what this new thing might bring. So here's the operative question, the main operative question for today, the one that I ask the children is, how do you know when an adjustment period is over and you're ready to launch out into the deep, to try something new? How do you know when the neutral zone has done its work and you're ready for that new beginning? Remember I talked about ancient cultures had those rites of passage where kids who were getting ready to enter adulthood were taken out into the village. They were taken outside of the village, sometimes with a spirit guide, often with a spirit guide. Their faces were painted and they stayed out there and they received instruction until it was time to come back, when it was understood that they understood what it meant to walk from childhood to adulthood. We don't have those kind of things. We may have bar mitzvahs or bat mitzvahs, and we may have confirmation, but those are not necessarily as clear a demarcation as they were for some of those ancient cultures. So sometimes we want somebody to set a timer, to ring a bell, to tell us to pass go and collect $200 so we know that something new is getting ready to shift. We want someone to wake us up from our 100-year fairy tale nap. We want to consult, as I used to as a kid when I didn't know any better, the Ouija board. Did you ever do that? Did you all ever play Ouija board? Amen. Will Timothy take me to the prom? We want an audible or visible sign from heaven if we can get it. We want to flip a coin. We want to pray. We want something from the outside to say to us, okay, now it's time to move from this place to that. Because we've all had false starts and missteps, and we don't like how that feels. Like if you're a runner and injure your Achilles heel and decide to start running before it's time to start running. A false start, a misstep, or marrying again too quickly, maybe, after the death of a spouse or through divorce. When Candace, one of my 25-year-olds in one of my churches in Knoxville, Tennessee, lost her husband of 4 years very tragically, I'll never forget that journey that we took with her through that dark night of the soul. From announcing and hearing the original loss to going into that place of neutrality. It was the love of her life. And she grieved for him like some of you I've seen and witnessed grieve for a spouse that you've been married to for 50 or 60 years. I think she grieved as much for his passing as she did for all of the broken or the hoped-for dreams that she would have with this man, that she didn't have, nor that her son had, that her small son would have. She was not worried about marrying again too soon. We weren't worried about that for her. We couldn't even get her to think about looking at dating. She wouldn't even become interested in anybody, even those who were interested in her and even those who were interesting that we tried to set her up with. Through the years, she continued to say, I don't know that I can love again. I'll feel like I'm betraying the love of my life. This is not just for young folk either. There are plenty of you who have lost spouses that wonder, can I ever find love again? Am I too old for love to find it again? I think not, if that is the way you feel led. As she began to integrate the pain more into her life, said to me, okay, so now if I start dating again, how am I going to know if I found the right one? What if my son doesn't like him? And what if I made the wrong choice and the marriage ends up in a divorce? So for years she poured herself into her son, poured herself into her church, into her work. She was an RN, and to her friends. Some said she was stuck in denial. We knew that she was angry. We thought that maybe she was doing a little bargaining with God. If you do this, but I'll do that. I like the image of those of us who are in stuck places. I like the image that comes to us from the Exodus and Numbers of the Israelites wandering in the wilderness. A journey that would have taken them maybe 9 months to a year, moving that many people, but how long did it take? 40 years, right at the door of the promised land, and they can't even get themselves in because they sent spies in, and not all the spies agreed. There's giants in that land, and they're big. Let's take them on, and some were scared to death to do it. And so what did they do? They returned to what was safe and familiar. They even said, Moses, take us back to Egypt. What have you done? Brought us out here to die? At least in Egypt, we can eat cucumbers and leeks. We know what those are like. At least we know how to function in that environment. In the wilderness, they say, we're not as strong as you think we are. We begin playing our old tapes of who we think we are and who we think we can become. We play those old, familiar, safe tapes. Do you know, I've had people say to me in the church, you can change anything you want, just wait till I die. And then I'm all up for it. We like the comfortable and familiar. I know, I love it too. I understand that. When the going gets tough, when we're in this place, we sometimes blame other people. We project the blame on them. If that new pastor hadn't come in and done this and had this vision for this or that, or if they hadn't gone to that workshop, or if they weren't such an evangelist, then maybe we could just keep things the way they were. Oh gosh, folks, I understand that. I'm where you are. I like the betwixt and the between. I'm there with you. Afraid to enter the promised land, though, when we know that there's milk and honey there. And it's tasty. And there's brave new adventures that we're just willing to take that step. And then not so terribly long ago, maybe a year or two ago, Candace Facebooked me and said, there's this guy that kind of walked into my life. And she said, Michelle, I don't know how to explain it to you, but she said, the best way I can tell you is it was a combination of a giddy teenage flutter heart and the wisdom of my grandmother that came together and said, you're ready. And so she began to date this man, and the last I heard, she's happily married. Think back to some important beginnings in your own life, or at least look back and see if you could see them now as beginnings. You run into an old friend that you haven't seen for years, and you find out that she's getting ready to take a hike across Europe, and you've always wanted to do that, but nobody would join you. Or, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, you miss your plane, and doggone it, they put you up in a hotel overnight, they reschedule your flight, and when you step on that flight, you meet your spouse-to-be, that you'll spend the rest of your days with. You started a manuscript when you were in a car accident and had plenty of time to rehab the manuscript for your first book, and it had always been on your bucket list to write a book. Or you studied French in college because the Spanish class was too early and you didn't like getting up early. Or you wanted children and you couldn't have children, and so you put the papers in for adoption, and you know what happened. Lo and behold, you're pregnant. But you always wanted 2 children, so you go ahead with the adoption, and then 7 months later you deliver your own baby. Those serendipitous, fortuitous beginnings that just kind of creep up on us and envelop us. Some people report that they have profound dreams that help signal to them when they're ready to take next steps. Some people report that a simple comment that a friend made when they were at supper one night, or reading a book, an unlikely book that was laying on a friend's coffee table, and you picked it up and started reading, and then you ordered it from Amazon, and it sent you on a whole new life trajectory. Whatever it is, Bridges says in his book that a genuine new beginning can only begin when we've realigned our hearts first. Candace wasn't ready to marry again because she didn't have in her heart, she wasn't aligned with her heart to know what she really, really wanted in a spouse. But when the time was right, she was ready to take that leap. And there are all kinds of people that do that. at the strangest times in their lives because they're at a place where they're unhappy. They go through that neutral zone and they're ready to try something new. Like the mother of 3 children, single mother of 3 children, who decides after months of query that she's going to go back to school, she's going to get her bachelor's degree, and she's going to get her master's degree, and she's going to start teaching school. And she does it against all odds. Get out of her way because she set her mind on it. I read a beautiful story of a doctor who had always wanted to be a percussionist in a symphony. But he was a doctor. He had a full plate of patients. He was very successful. It's what his parents wanted him to do, of course, and his grandparents before, because, you know, they had all been doctors in the family. And so he did that. And then lo and behold, he finds out that one of his friend's daughters has registered for a choral camp, and he can't stand it anymore. He gets the information and finds out about the choral camp, goes to the choral camp, true story, and then comes back from that experience and decides it's time to give up the practice. Friends say to him, "Are you crazy? Look at your house, look at your lifestyle. What will you say to your patients? What will you say to your children?" So he downsized, he bought a different house, he took out a loan to help pay for his kids' college, and guess what? He became a percussionist. And he said he had never been happier in his life. Sometimes, when you're ready to make those changes, you just know that you know that you know, and against all odds, you do it. Interesting, as we look at the story of Lazarus, if you're a student of Scripture, you know that this story foreshadows Jesus' own resurrection. It is the foreshadowing of that event later in John chapters 19 and 20. Today's text is magnificently beautiful, and it's mysteriously halting at the same time. What BFF finds out that their friend is dying, is ill to the point of dying, and then waits 2 days before he closes down camp and invites his friends to walk with him to Bethany? Is this a friend that's selfish, lazy, fearful, misaligned priorities? I doubt that Lazarus was ready to die either. If Jesus started his ministry at 33, we could assume that maybe Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, same age, maybe he's in his 30s. He's not ready to die a premature death. This was not in the cards for him. And before they even left, Jesus knew that Lazarus had died. The disciples can't get it. No, he's not fallen asleep. No, he's really dead. I can't imagine how Jesus felt. Martha met him on the road. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died." Mary the same. "If you had only been here, he wouldn't have died." Scholars say it's both a complaint and a confidence that if he would pray to God even yet, that something miraculous can happen. Lazarus was sick, but this was not how the story was supposed to go. We see the unplugged humanity of Jesus in the story because we see that at the tomb he wept. Fascinating if you do some study on that Greek word of weeping at the tomb and being greatly disturbed and moved in spirit when he finds out that Lazarus is dead. The Greek word is embryomai, which means that he was deeply distressed and agitated. And to be perfectly blunt, all the reading I did said that it meant to snort as if an angry horse. So that Jesus was angry to the point of snorting in the face of death, almost a righteous indignation at the death of his friend. And then he too began to weep. He says to Lazarus, "Come out." And Lazarus did just that. They say that hearing is the last sense to go. Lazarus heard and came forth. That his hands and feet were still bound together with strips of cloth, his face the same. In Lazarus' case, death was the final ending, as final as you can get. The only thing that could happen there was for things to go up. So with just one word, but a powerful word at that, a new chapter in Lazarus' life was about to be written. As I close, I ask you to think about this. We live in a generation where we're all about writing our own chapters and doing our own things. We are masters of our own soul, captains of our own destinies, or maybe that's a reverse of Henry Blow. But we have less control of our Just ask someone who's just been diagnosed with cancer. Do a 23andMe chromosomal study, and you might find out how much control you have or you don't have. Or understand that we're called to love our neighbors as much as we love ourselves. We don't have as much control as we think we do. So I wonder what it would be like, instead of working so hard to make our own plans for how we fulfill our destiny, if we see what life could find us, what thing in life could find us where our deep gladness could meet the world's deep need. And it's not so much about how I can start with self and fulfill self, but how can I be available to the world to be an agent of change and a new beginning for all the places that need it. The call for us is to walk with God into the scary and unknown brave new world, whatever that is for you, whatever decision you're on the brink of making. If you're stepping out of that neutral zone into a new place, knowing that you're ready for that change, and then stepping out believing that you don't walk alone, that God walks with you. And here's the beautiful thing, the image I leave you with again. When Lazarus came out of the tomb, did you know what Jesus said to the community of those who were gathered around him? Unbind him. Let him go. Part of our job, folks, is to walk with people who are free or those who are bound up, and to help unwind the bands of whatever it is that binds them, to walk alongside of them so they too can experience the new life and new beginning that God may have for them. If that's not resurrection and transition to new life, I don't know what is. May it be so. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.